Okay, today's project is strings and measuring tape. A little bit less of a mess than I've been making it here in the garage lately. So we're looking at the SRT Challenger Cradle from underneath. It's already been narrowed 1 inch on each side. I didn't really tell you a good measurement wheel mounting to wheel surface to wheel mounting surface because the video that I made, it was I threw the measurement away, so I'm gonna have to do that again. But suffice it to say, it's narrower than the original from WMS to WMS. What have I done so far? Mark the cradle center lines, so when I set it in the car, I can kind of start figuring that out. I'll need to figure out the center line for the car, and then the wheel center line, so I can get it lined up in the wheel wells. So got that going for us. Relative placement. So these original mounts that are on the edges there and up in the front, doesn't look like those are going to fit in the car. Going to have to cut and weld the frame rails like the guy did on that street rod forum, pro touring forum. Cuda frame rails. Just kind of a relative measurement here. Excuse me while I whip this out. Across the insides, you're looking at insides. Somewhere around 39 inches, about where I predict this thing's going to be on the back side. So 39. Okay, the fronts are around, well, they're a little less than 36 inches. So this is the front mounts. Even if I just try to center them up. Let's see. Bear with me. Even just relatively centered up. About 40 inches there. That's the front. The backs are around about the same, 39 and we'll just call it 40. So basically, neither one of those measurements are really going to work as a way to mount the cradle into the frame. So I'll plan on welding like the other guy did. And then what does that do for you? Well, you know, you got to cut some frame rail out. That's kind of a bummer after welding the frame rails in. But at the same time, you start looking at the beef that's in that cradle versus the one shot cross member that goes down there where the indents are. And you've got something that stiffens it up side to side pretty significantly. So it ties the frame rails in really good. Because back here, you know, that doesn't do a whole lot for, I mean, I guess it ties the frame rails in some, but it's a thin piece of metal. I'll put it this way, I could just bend that with my hands if I wanted to. So that rear cross member is pretty dink. So that'll stiffen it side to side. And then the other thing is it'll require boxing plates on the frame rails themselves, probably along here, inside and out, and along there. So eventually that will add to the strength. And then when you start talking about, you know, relatively where this is, so you're looking at the rear wheel well, if I can back up some. And when you start putting a cage in, you know, there's the back of the roof, there's the wheel well. So if you can cage down to the top of the cradle, oops. That's pretty meaty in there. So maybe, you know, cage down to these front pads here, something of that nature. Then that'll give it even more support. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to read some more, maybe ask some people some questions. Other things that have to be done. These wheel wells are not finished welded in, they're just kind of tacked. You can see I've been marking a little bit. These are the outer part of the outer wheel wells. And this is, it goes in significantly this way. So that's one of the things that allows you, or doesn't allow you, to put larger tires on the car. So that needs to be cut out and then pushed out to the outside of the car this way. And then the other thing I may do is go ahead and mini tub it, since I got to cut the frame anyway. So at least take it into where the frame rails are. That will give you another maybe 1.5 inches or so along there, and then even more up toward the front. So there's my thoughts and plans. We'll see how it goes, and I'll record it for posterity or for you to make fun of me. Okay, bye. All right, so now what I'm doing is measuring center lines. So the rear end, I mean, you can see it's offset to the left there in the back, but between those two mounting washers in the front and where that center rib is right here, that is the actual center line of the rear end. So I measured that. That center line corresponds directly with the center line there. And then the other thing I started doing is working out the actual center line on the car with measurements. So up here at the front on the rad support, the one on the right is the actual center line. I was about 1/8 of an inch off on my first measurement, so I went through and redid that. Of course, all you Cuda files know this, but the whole trans tunnel is offset in this car to the driver's side. So the floor pan on that side is wider than the floor pan on this side, which, if you were looking at my video on the subframe connectors, you can see that. I mean, it's pretty easy to see. So that's the actual center line that's on the old trans cross member. And I think I told you, but I'm going to cut out all this and use all that US car tool stuff. So I wasn't just going to use a Challenger late model transmission hump, cut it out and sew it in. But I think I'll use the US car tool stuff for a couple of different reasons. But anyway, I'll spare you the reasons, because that's what I want to do. How about that? And then in the back, mark the center line. And the center line on my trunk is just about 1/8 of an inch off the rib of the trunk floor to the left in this picture. So it's 1/8 of an inch to the left. So I guess that tells me a lot of stuff. I didn't do too bad on putting the floor in where it's supposed to be. So now what I'll do is I'll stretch a string from front to rear, tape it all down, and then kind of mark the center line up in that portion where you see the spray can up there right now. And then when I put the rear end cradle and drop it in here just to kind of do some test fitting, at least I can do some preliminary alignments to make sure it's where it needs to be in the car and it doesn't go down the road in a crab, so to speak. So get all the center lines taken care of, and then I'll work fore aft to get the wheel and tire center line in the fender well. So I'll do that. That's all. You can see center line string there. I made sure it was as straight as I could possibly get it. And it lines up darn near on top of my mark on the transmission cross member, so I'm pretty happy with that. You can see how the drive set, the drive shaft tunnel is offset I guess that is to the passenger side of the car, since it's currently upside down, but you got more room on that side. Other thing that I did, I'll try to remember to put the pictures in. I was looking at tire spacing fore to aft in the wheel well back here, and what I determined is that the wheel center line needs to be somewhere about there. I'll probably remeasure that, and I'll put the pictures in of, first when I put it in, I had the wheel a little too far aft, then too far forward, and then just kept working it until I got a picture of what I liked, and then marked it. The only thing I'll say is that just looking at this, that line does not look, let me zoom out some. That line is not straight across. So I'll fiddle with that a little bit, but this mark on the edge here is good. So I'm looking at that. And then I'll be able to mark some center lines out the back through the trans tunnel. And then pull it all the way to the back of the car if need be. So that was just the next step.